right. All right. First, I want to say thanks to Tom and the school board for allowing this information to be put onto our agenda tonight. I think it's important. It's going to be tough to hear and tough to see some of these statistics, but I do think it's important, and I'm excited and happy to be here because I think we could hide the data, and that wouldn't do any good for anybody. I'd also like to thank the district admin who are here, who are obviously here because they support getting this information out to our communities and to the public, and their work in continuing to support the staff who are implementing the task that we need to support our kids. I'd also like to introduce Charlotte Scott, who's here tonight, and she is from the Southern Rockingham Coalition, and that is a prevention and education organization that we work with here at Sanborn. They do a lot to support our kids and to support our staff as we help our kids navigate these tough issues that they're facing. And finally, I want to thank the district counseling team who is here, and they're the drivers of this work. They are there day in, day out, and you'll see some of the things that they're hearing from the kids, from our littlest all the way up to our oldest students. And I'd like them to come up and just say their names and where they work, and just to have a second for us to acknowledge them. They didn't know I was going to do that, so I'm sure they're super excited. But I would love for them to all come up and join me up here. So counseling team. And then you, yes, and you guys. Oh, make yourself here first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel Nippert. I'm one of the school counselors at Memorial School.
I'm Amy Collins, and I'm also at Memorial School.
So Sam gave me the heads up. I've been practicing for the last hour. I'm Kayleen Fraser. I'm the district social worker.
Zach Barker at the high school.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Brett, high school counselor.
Bob Hatzmanola, special ed counselor at the high school.
Jenna Grossman, I am a high school counselor.
Julie Conroe, and I am also from the high school.
So yay for them, because they really are working hard, and they're exhausted. And so to be here at 6:30 at night is, I think, just a testament to how much they value this work and making sure that everybody understands what's really happening for our kids. And obviously, I'm sure they would love it if anybody would ask them questions at the end also. All right. So our objectives for tonight is first to share out the data from our youth risk behavior survey. We'll talk a little bit about what that survey is. Our other objective is to let you know a little bit about what is going on in our district to manage those crises, manage those mental health issues that are coming up for our kids. We want to let you know a little bit about our response to the behavior concerns that we're seeing, and most importantly, to talk about how the school board and the community can continue to support the efforts to improve behavior outcomes for our kids. This information can be really hard to hear, and but I think it's important for the story to be told, so we can see truly what our kids are bringing to the table every day, and what they're able to do as we're asking them to do school. All right. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the YRBS. And this is it's the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, because I know we don't like acronyms. And it is put out every year from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. It's a high school survey. 67% of our students took that survey. It was done in 2021 in the fall of 2021.
Actually done in the fall.
Yep. We had 69 other high schools in the state of New Hampshire who took the survey. It's a self-administered, anonymous 106 item questionnaire that looks at some of the topics that you see on the screen there. It's anonymous, it's voluntary participation, and parents have to opt their students into this survey. So we can't give the survey unless parents allow us to, which I think you need to, when we look at the numbers and we look at the data, we have to keep that in our mind, because who are the kids who are going to sit for a 106 question survey, right? Who are the students whose parents are going to say, yes, this is okay? Who are the kids who are going to be able to get to school to be able to do this? So that may not be, we don't know this for a fact, so I have to just report the facts. But thinking about that information, the students who may be most at risk and most impacted by some of these topics were probably not sitting at the table taking this survey. This data is used to direct grant money throughout the state, and it also is used to drive our decisions here in Sanborn. So as I said, these figures are shocking. These figures are challenging to accept, and oftentimes we don't want to think about them. When we look at this data, this looks at our depression and suicide rates. And I think it's easy to look at the percentages, but what I would like you to do is look at those starbursts. That's 36 students. That's 36 kids who you know, who you've coached, who have sat next to your children, maybe at birthday parties when they were little, who are at those concerts that we all love to attend. 36 of our students attempted suicide last year. 117 of our students made a plan about how they might attempt suicide in the past 12 months. And 141 of our students seriously considered. If we look at just those top two numbers, that's 153 of our students. I know some of you have, I've been in this district a long time and I've attended many funerals for our kids. And I can't imagine attending 153 funerals. One is too many, but 153 kids were really at risk last year. It's important to remember that these are, as I said, these are numbers. They're not numbers. These are students. These are real kids. And if you look at this data, the blue bars are Sanborn's data. The orange bar is the New Hampshire data. And we also put information up there over the course of the year, so you can compare year to year, because we have taken the YRBS. We've had our kids take the YRBS since 2017. So the light blue number at the bottom is 2017. The medium blue number is 2019, and then the darker blue number is 2021. And you can see from these bars that Sanborn is either at the state average or a little bit higher.
Yeah, just, maybe you said it, I apologize. Why was there no 2018 data?
They administer it every 2 years. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to keep looking to my team.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is 2017 the year we started doing it, or just we're only going back just so much
I
time? All
believe 2017.
We did it.
We did?
Okay.
Okay.
right, thank you, Charlotte.
So when kids are really sad and not getting the support that they need, what does that look like? So for high school kids, oftentimes they'll mask those emotions with substance use. And that's what this slide will indicate for you. They're masking that pain that they're experiencing. So again, if we look at those numbers, 85 of our students in the past 30 days are using a vaping. Some of the more, I think, ones that when we first saw this data, 13 students have used heroin once or more times in their lifetime. 19 of our kids have tried meth one or more times during their lifetime. 31 students have taken a prescription drug without that prescription being for them during the last 30 days. And these same colors are as previous. So orange is New Hampshire and blue is Sanborn. And you can see, again, we are far above in some instances the New Hampshire average. The news isn't all bad. This slide captures some improvements in our schools around substance use from 2017 in gray, 2019 in orange, and 2021 in blue. Through your support and through the budget, we've been able to have a student assistance counselor here at Sanborn. That person has worked with both the high school and the middle school students. And we've also been able to develop a partnership, an increased partnership with SoRock. They're actually housed right here in our school, so we can access them easily and readily, and we do. So here we're seeing the impact from the many assemblies that we've been able to hold through the partnership with SoRock and having this assistance counselor here, the small groups, the class lessons, the school-wide interventions. We've made progress, but we still have much more room to go. Okay. Yep.
I know that there's a lot of really hard information to see here, but that bottom one is really important. Tried marijuana for the first time for 13 years old. Could be way worse, but it could be better.
Mhm.
It's really important to just.
Those are kids before, before they hit high
Alcohol.
school.
48 kids before the age of 13 had alcohol.
Thank you.
I'm surprised that marijuana is so low, given that all the states are promoting it.
And again, that was a more positive one, but it's still not, I want it to be zero. But I just didn't want to miss it.
Yep. The survey also looks at the relationships that our kids are having. This slide shows the harrowing numbers of sexual violence that our students are reporting. As much as we adults might want to think about it, we do know that high schoolers are in the developmental stage of beginning to form sexual relationships. It needs to be all our jobs to ensure that we're teaching appropriate boundaries to our kids. And that can't start in high school. That has to start at Bakey. That has to start with our youngest kids, with teaching them how do they say no when someone's doing something that they don't like. And if you look at the 9% of our students is 37 students. So if you look at that bottom graph there, so 37 students are walking through the high school, expected to attend school every day, having reading and math and doing well on the SATs when they've experienced a rape. So again, that's 37 students at the high school. I know that we recently hung up the signs in all of the bathrooms for Haven, which is an organization that supports sexual assault victims. And within the first 3 days, I noticed the bathroom that I most frequently use, there were 4 tags taken off of that bathroom. That's a single stall bathroom. So whether that's some of our students who feel most safe in a single stall bathroom, it might be staff, but 4 tags were taken in the first 4 days. Again, these are issues that our kids are facing that I think would bring many adults to their knees. This slide is about the bullying, and in New Hampshire the legislature has a very explicit definition of bullying. And I don't think many of our kids know exactly what that bullying definition is. So when I read this slide, when I look at this data, I'm looking at this more through the lens of thinking, this is the number of kids who don't feel safe. This is the number of kids who feel that someone's been really mean to them, mean enough that it's on their mind. This is something that they're reporting. This isn't just a one-off comment someone has made. This is ongoing, kind of feeling like they don't belong here, feeling that they don't want to go to school because they don't feel safe here. And we see those numbers. We see that many of our students aren't coming to school in the past 30 days because they don't feel safe. And we have to ask ourselves, how can we ask students to focus if they feel they aren't being treated well by their peers when they're trying to fit in with their peers? We know that that's so important for high school kids. That's their primary objective, is to fit in with their peers. And if they don't feel that they do, and they don't feel safe, how can we possibly expect them to do well in school? We know our kids don't exist in a bubble at school, and many of our kids, as I said, carry burdens that would put many of the adults in this room out on a leave from their job. We would ask to stay home to be able to take care of business, and yet we continue to ask them to come to school and do well, and sit down and do what we ask them to do. I think this slide speaks to the challenges that our kids are bringing to school every single day. So we have 207 of our students who are saying that they feel like they don't have an adult that they can talk to about their feelings. 49 of our kids are dealing with a parent or a caregiver who's currently in prison. 239 of our students are dealing with someone or living with someone who has mental illness, or a parent who is possibly suicidal. 183 of our students are living with someone with a substance abuse problem. 9% of our kids are living with family member who's serving in the military. And when we look at that statistic, we have to think of the loss and the anxiety. If you have a family member who's stationed somewhere where it's not safe, that child's coming to school every day thinking and worrying about that caregiver. And 98 of our students on the regular basis are put down, sworn at, insulted by someone who's supposed to be caring for them. So again, think about as an adult, having to go to work every day carrying one of these issues. And some of our kids are carrying multiple of them. All of these factors impact our students' wellness. So I think we can all take a deep breath, right? This is tough stuff, right? And I'm looking around and I'm seeing the expressions of people. And when I've looked at this data a number of times, and it's jarring to me, thinking about who my kids are, who are walking around next to me every day, they're throwing carrots at each other in the lunchroom. But then, okay, what's really going on? What's happening here for our kids? So we have to take a minute and think about that. But those are just the high school numbers. The YRBS data just gives us a snapshot in black and white of what's happening at the high school. These high school kids used to be our middle school kids, who used to be our elementary school kids. These kids didn't come to high school and just all of a sudden start dealing with these issues. We know that these issues are happening for our youngest kids. We've all seen recently in the news, the 6-year-old who shot his teacher. This is not happening just here at Sanborn, and it's happening at a younger and younger age. Our kids are really, really struggling. Our youngest learners are struggling. So we can talk a little bit about what the data looks like for them. So this data that I'm going to talk about now is coming from QuickBase. We have talked here at this group before about the System of Care grant, and the System of Care grant has required our counselors to enter data into a system called QuickBase. So that's where this data is captured from. This is just for 22-23 for acute crisis management. So when I speak to acute crisis, those are those crises that are not just a little argument in a classroom or a student refusing to do their homework or dropping a pencil on purpose. These are the significant crises. So these are fighting. These are kids who are running away from school, extreme emotional dysregulation. So those tantrums that you remember from a toddler, those are those tantrums happening in the schools. Just this school year, up until January 1st, we've had 83 crisis interventions with 63 different students, which has resulted in 65 lost student hours and 176 staff hours. These numbers don't reflect the amount of time that goes into, this is just dealing with the crisis itself. So this doesn't reflect the amount of time that our counseling staff and our administrators and our support staff are spending on data entry, are spending on contacting the police and working with DCYF to make sure that the kids are safe. It doesn't reflect any parent phone calls and any parent meetings that are happening afterwards to plan to how can we prevent this from happening again. And as you can see on the left side where it says crisis type, the highest amount of crises are extreme emotional dysregulation with 37 incidents for 29 hours. Danger to self with 17 incidents for 16 3/4 hours. Okay. This slide here speaks to our increased partnerships with our community mental health centers. In Sanborn District, we work with 2 community mental health centers because we have 3 towns. So we partner with Seacoast Mental Health Center, who supports our students from Kingston and Fremont, and Center for Life Management, who supports our students from Newton. A facilitated referral is when you think about a hand-over-hand referral to make sure that the student receives the support that they need. If you think about a family that's dealing with a student who's in crisis, maybe a student who's said to their parent, I want to die. I want to kill myself. I don't want to be here anymore. Can you imagine as a parent what that feels like? And then saying to that parent, here's a phone number. Why don't you call them and get some support? That's not what we can do anymore. We have to help parents to be able to navigate that system. So we work with the families to make sure that when they when they have that phone number, that we give them a person to call. We have somebody who calls them. We've worked really hard to develop those partnerships so that we can support the families as they make these mental health referrals. Last year, we had 13 of those facilitated referrals. This year, we had 18 so far this year. This is not counting the private practitioners. So many of the school counselors have developed relationships with private practitioners who might be familiar with, or might be an expert in the area of adoption, or might be an expert in the area of attachment disorders or anxiety or grief. And so this is just our referrals to mental health centers. It's not counting those private practitioners who we're also referring kids to for very specialized care. Okay. Another indicator of the struggles our students are facing is truancy. When they can't come to school, they don't. Or for our littlest learners, if their caregiver is struggling with mental health issues and can't get them to school, maybe doesn't wake them up, can't get them dressed, can't get them to the bus, they don't come to school. You can certainly see that our numbers of truancy have increased significantly since COVID. And I think this is obviously something we're concerned about, but I think 8% of our students meet that federal definition for chronic truancy. And I think it's just continues to get worse. And as we know, since COVID, our kids have had a difficult time re-engaging in school. And if our kids aren't in school, how can we possibly support them? How can we give them academic interventions? How can we give them emotional support and wellness interventions?
Question?
Yep.
So the 2019 to 2020 numbers were significantly lower. Did we stop tracking during the lockdown?
That is a great question. I bet that attendance numbers were significantly impacted. I can't speak to what individual teachers did, but I would imagine that how you decided a student was present or at what point they were present was probably very different than when they were sitting right in front of you in class.
Yeah, I bet a lot of kids showed up to school that didn't normally.
It's a complicated question, but
Yeah.
there are people who might join a Zoom call that weren't coming to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't definitively, I would say that's an anomaly that we should.
Significant enough.
Yeah, yeah, and
Because, that's a slight increase from 2017 to 2018, but.
right.
So
I would look at it more in an overarching and kind of that data for that year is going to be
But I am significantly concerned. We're at 7.9%.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Heidi.
sure. We do have an amazing counseling team here in the district, and because of your support and through the budget, we've been able to maintain a relatively large counseling staff for a district of our size. And these counselors, they are busy, they're running, they're like the ducks. They are amazing. They're calm, cool, and collected. They're supporting the staff, they're supporting the administrators, and underneath their feet are paddling because they are running ragged. And these are the issues that are presenting in their office. And if you can, I know it's really tiny data, but you can see that the biggest issues are not academic concerns, right? The students are showing up because of social and friendship concerns, that emotional dysregulation, being able to manage themselves. Internalizing behaviors is more anxiety, it's depression, it's trauma related issues, it's flashbacks. And then we see the attendance or the academic concerns being as an issue that our counselors are dealing with. But we see kids, they're helping kids, support kids with everything from gender identity and sexual orientation, self-harm, substance misuse, grief and loss. And again, if you go back to remembering that these are the kids who are coming to school, right? We've got 8% of our kids who are probably, I would guess, would add to these numbers.
Heidi, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The totals here add up to more than 100%. Could you just explain how you got the percents?
Those are, Sam.
Select multiple when a kid is referred to you, so they could come for self-harm and social concern.
Okay, so they can double.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense.
So when we think of younger students tend to act out their behaviors or those feelings, right? Our older students tend to internalize that emotional dysregulation more. So when we look at what are the top behaviors of discipline referrals, and this was pulled from what the administrators enter into our student information system, we can see at the younger grades, it's a lot of physical contact. It's a lot of physical aggression. And at the high school, those cell phones. But really with our younger kids, it's that very physical behaviors. And when we think about where our staff are getting hurt from trying to intervene with those physically aggressive kids. Okay. So anecdotally, as I said, our counseling staff, they're supporting the kids, certainly. They're also supporting the staff. And these are the things that the staff are coming in and talking with them about. We have lots of staff who come in and they're just crying sometimes because they don't know what to do and they want to support the kids. So increased behavioral challenges, increased unsafe behaviors. Students are presenting at a younger developmental stage. I've been in this field for 27 years. The kids who are in front of us today are very, very different than the kids who were in front of me 27 years ago. They're presenting at a much younger developmental stage. The skills and tools that we would use with kids 27 years ago are not the skills and tools that would work with kids now. They're just presenting certainly different since COVID, but I think this has been happening for longer than COVID. There's more need to consult with counseling department to manage concerns. The teachers are really needing that contact with experts in the field. When they're taught to be teachers, they're not taught how to deal with a student who has significant trauma. They're not taught what do you do if a student is having flashbacks and they're under their chair and you know that that student is not seeing you as their teacher right there. That's not in Teacher 101 school. So they're going to the experts, they're going to the counselors. There's not enough time to hold the meetings to discuss all of the students who have these concerns. As you can see, these numbers are tremendous. 200 kids for some things. And the majority of the teachers feel they don't have the tools in the toolbox that they need to support the kids that they're seeing now. They want to, I can tell you, they're desperate for that information. They really want to know how to support kids and help them to be their best. They just don't know how to do it. So again, we can take a breath and think, what are we going to do? Because this just seems so overwhelming, right? It just seems like, oh my gosh, where do we even begin? I think you may have heard about MTSSB. You've heard that acronym. And I think the easiest way to explain it is MTSSB is a lens through which we look at wellness and student emotional health. And it helps us to define and organize the interventions and supports that we provide for kids to make sure that the right kids are getting what they need at the right time. So many of you are familiar with that pyramid of intervention and for academics. So if you look at the left side of this schoolhouse, you can see that that's what, when we think of those tiered interventions, the left side is what it might look like for academics. And the right side is what it might look like for emotional wellness. So when we think about tier 1, that's the majority of our kids. That's our core instruction. That's our teachers giving lessons every day for academics. And for emotional wellness, it is the school-wide behavior expectations. It's our crisis de-escalation tools that our teachers, some of our teachers at the younger grades have been taught. If we think about moving up to tier 2, how do we figure out who tier 2 kids are? With academics, we do an academic assessment. We might do NEWA tests, and that will give us a picture of who are the kids who need some extra reading assessment. For emotional wellness, we're looking at doing behavioral skills screening. We're looking at having our teachers really think about who our kids are and who are those kids who might need a little bit more. What do we do with academics? We give small group instruction. If a student hasn't mastered a specific skill in reading, we pull them out and teach them that specific skill. The same thing happens for wellness. It's targeted behavior supports and behavioral skills groups. And for our top needs kids, our most needy kids, for academics, we're looking at IEPs, we're looking at intensive individualized intervention. Same for wellness, for emotional wellness. We're looking at intensive individualized behavioral health services. That's where those referrals are happening to the community mental health centers. So what does this look like at Sanborn? All of our schools have tiered teams. And all of those teams have administrators on them. They have interventionists, they have counselors, they have teachers. This is a whole school effort working to help support our kids. At tier 1, this looks like those school-wide behavior expectations. All of the tier 1 teams are currently working or are already piloting things to make sure that our kids really know what's expected of them. And if they don't know how to do it, we're going to teach it to everybody, because even the ones who know it might need a little bit of a refresher. I'm sure my little guy who throws carrots in the lunchroom knows he's not supposed to throw carrots in the lunchroom. So we have to help remind him of that. At the tier 1, we're also talking about looking at those data points. We're looking at data from the school counseling office. We're looking at data from the nurse's office. We're looking at that truancy data. We're looking at office discipline referrals, and we're looking at academic failure reports. All of that is helping to feed what are we doing for all of our kids across the school. And that is delivered through those morning meetings that you see happening at Bakey. They may be focusing on one skill that, based on those data points, we're seeing a lot of anxiety or tummy ache visits to the nurse. What does that look like? Okay, that's a lot of kids who are feeling anxious about taking NEWA. Let's talk about, how do you deal with when you're anxious? What does anxiety feel like for a little guy? So those tier 1 teams are talking about what is the data telling us? We're not talking about individual kids at tier 1. What is the data telling us about all of our kids? At tier 2, that's when we're really focusing on who are those kids who might need that additional support. The teachers who are recognizing that this student has left my class every day for 25 minutes and is in the bathroom, and their friends are coming in saying that they're crying. Or we have a number of students who are coming in who are talking about anxiety or feeling just dysregulated in the morning, and they don't know how to get their day started. Or students who just can't organize themselves for the week, to plan for the week, to how to get their work done. Those kids might be in a targeted group to develop those skills short term with our school counselors to teach those skills so that we can support them and help them return to the baseline functioning. And then tier 3 kids, that's where we're working with our mental health system. We're facilitating that referral. We might have our social worker do a parent meeting. A parent might be dealing with a student who has recently been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder or a bipolar disorder, and they don't know how to change their household to support that child. So our school social worker might be having those conversations with that parent to do some short-term parent interventions. But again, this is happening across all of our schools, looking at that data that we're collecting and responding to the data so we can support our kids. If we do this with fidelity, if we put those groups together and we're targeting the right kids and we're identifying those kids early enough and getting them in for the supports that they need, the change can be tremendous. This is a study that was done at a local New Hampshire school that has been implementing MTSSB for a number of years. This is the hours that they gain due to the decrease in office discipline referrals. So that's what ODR stands for. You can see that the number of student hours that were gained since they started implementing is over 9,000 student hours. That's 9,000 hours spent on instruction. 9,000 hours where kids are sitting in front of a teacher learning without having to manage some of the other stuff that they're bringing to the table. And if we look at the number of hours that the administrators, they're gaining back almost 7,000 hours. 7,000 hours where they can be coaching our newest teachers. So we can be looking at not having staff turnover, because the teachers are feeling supported, because our administrators, who are the experts in teaching, are in the classroom supporting those people who are brand new teachers. It's a win for everyone. What are we continuing to focus on? Implementing MTSSB to fidelity across the district, looking at those tier 1 interventions, supporting the whole school community, building those relationships with all of our students. So we know that change happens within relationships, and making sure that all of our kids feel that they have somebody who's in their corner that they can talk to, that's not treating them unkindly. Understanding where they're coming from, understanding what they may be bringing to the table, and continuing to build things to engage them in school. Partnering with our families to celebrate our students' successes. Asking for help. We can't be experts on everything. There's too many issues that our kids are facing. And our staff, as amazing as they are, can't be experts in everything. So we as a staff are going to continue to ask for help from the experts in the community. There are people who their only job, as I said, Haven, is to support folks who are dealing with sexual assault and teaching kids how to have healthy relationships. We need to partner more with them because we can't be experts on that. And then continuing to refine our behavior data collection so we can make the best decisions for how to support our kids. As we collect data and we respond to it, and our kids are better at one topic, then we can move on to the next. But we don't know that if we're not collecting the data to look at those issues that our kids are facing. So those are our goals. So again, I want to thank all of you for allowing this information to be presented. As I said at the beginning, we could hide this. We don't need to stand here and record this for all to see all of the things that our Sanborn kids struggle with. But you guys have chosen not to do that. We're putting it in a public manner because what we recognize is that we can't do this alone. This is not just an administrator issue. This is not just a counselor issue. It's not just a teacher. It's not just a school board issue. This is all of us working together to be able to support our kids. I lost my track of thought. So what do we need from the school board? What do we need from the community? Continue. You guys have been amazing. As I said, through the budget, through the school board support, we've been able to keep our counseling staff to develop those relationships. We need to continue to support our staff as we develop those relationships with those community resources and the experts. We have Lynn Lyons, who's a local expert on anxiety, speaks nationally. Through this work, we are able to have Lynn come and speak to our parents in April. She's going to be able to work with our staff to teach them, how do you manage students' anxiety in the classroom? What does that look like? Again, that's not a skill that they're taught in teacher school. We need to help them now. And she's going to be spending some time with our counseling staff to really help target our interventions with our most anxious kids. Haven, as I said, having them help to teach our youngest kids those boundaries so that when they are in high school, we're not looking at 37 students walking through the school who've experienced a sexual assault. When we can teach our kids when they're younger to say no, and that it's okay to say no, and that you can keep your friendships, then we won't look at that number. We'll see a significantly decreased number. Seacoast Outright is an organization that supports our students who are dealing with gender identity issues. Those are our most vulnerable kids. We didn't even talk about the subsets of populations of students who will commit suicide. Our students who are dealing with gender identity issues are most at risk, more than any other population of adolescents. And continuing to work with our community mental health centers, continuing to allow us to have those partnerships, continuing to support SOROC and that relationship here at Sanborn. Our professional development day, we've already decided, is going to be a follow-up to last year's trainings. Last year, we trained the high school and middle school in youth mental health first aid. And we trained our elementary staff with crisis prevention and de-escalation techniques. In February, we're going to switch that so that our high school staff will have more of that crisis prevention, and our elementary staff will start to hear about what do you do if you have a first grader, a second grader, a third grader who talks about wanting to hurt themselves. And again, I know that's hard to think about, but I can tell you that the counseling staff sitting behind me have dealt with that many times this year with our youngest kids. We have a new family engagement committee. So we are going to be looking to put out activities for families to engage with the school, with local experts and with one another. I think the biggest piece of information that I hope that this does is that it brings awareness to our families that you're not alone. You're not the only family that's struggling with mental health issues. You're not the only family that's struggling with some of these family issues that are going on, substance abuse, loss in your family. And we all need to be there to come together, and we can connect with one another, and removing that isolation and removing that stigma is going to do nothing but help our kids and our families. We are looking to continue to support opportunities to capture data. So we need school board and superintendent approval to continue to do the youth risk behavior survey. So we will be looking to continue to be able to collect that data. Swiss is a data tool that costs money, but it's a tool that allows us to be able to, the administrators to input data, the counselors to input data on what it is that they're seeing, so that way can make those data-driven decisions. And teacher-rated screenings for behavior. This is something that in the state of New Hampshire, we need to get permission. And we, as I think a district, need to figure out, our teachers are the experts on their kids. And we need to find a way to be able to allow our teachers to give the counseling staff that information. We need to continue to focus on improving our district culture and climate by listening to the needs of our teachers and staff, so that school doesn't feel like an unsafe place, so that it feels like a warm and engaging community. And by doing that, we need to continue to focus on those professional development, classroom management, trauma response, and giving our teachers the resources and the time to talk to one another, so that they can use that data to be able to make good decisions for our kids. And finally, we ask that you consider mental health needs while developing the budget, creating policies, and making decisions about the district and our kids. We can't look at kids as just numbers, and I'm not implying that anyone has. And that's why I said, think about those kids who are on your kids' baseball teams. Think about the kids who are coming to your kids' birthday parties. Those are the kids that are struggling with these mental health needs. So we just ask that you continue to partner with us to problem solve how we can support the behavioral health needs of our students. And that's it.